The Sicilian defense is the most aggressive response to e4. And today you're going to be learning everything about the Sicilian defense. All the opening moves, the middle game plans, the attacking patterns, even some tactics that could happen in the opening. Now, today we're focusing on the Sicilian can. I also created a membership only video explaining the full theory behind the Sicilian can. So if you're trying to crush with the Sicilian, watch this full video, apply what I teach, and watch your ratings goes through the roof. Kicking things off in the 500 region. Today I'm going to be showing you guys the Sicilian defense, in particular the Sicilian hand. Now, after knight f3, the plan is to play e6. Eventually, we're going to play a6, queen c7, and the whole idea is to get a very complex game attacking their king on the king side. Now, the Sicilian can actually works perfectly whenever someone plays the Italian game, and we know that everybody plays the Italian game. And the reason for this is, for one, the bishop points towards dust because it's pointing towards a pawn chain. We can always play d5 and gain tempo on the bishop, but after we play a6, we can also just play b5, hit the bishop, and in some cases, we could even trap the bishop. Okay, d3 was played. Let's put the queen on c7 so that way there's no bishop to f4. And if the king is castled, there's actually a very, very simple plan here, which you guys are going to be seeing me using this the whole time, this video, which is to try to get the knight on g4, knight f6, knight g4. And there's also knight c6 to d4. And if I'm able to get this knight away from guarding h2, queen takes h2 could be a checkmate, assuming he castles his king on the king side. So instead he develops his knight. Let's just keep developing, knight to f6. Bishop e3, he continues to develop, and now I'm going to play this move pawn to b5 to attack this bishop. Also, if his plan is to castle on the queen side, because my pawns are already launching on the queen side, it makes it very risky for him. Why did he sacrifice? Come on, bro. I guess he thought the bishop was trapped. The bishop was not trapped. He thinks pawn c4 traps the bishop. But after takes, your bishop is able to go to a4, bro. You just gave me a free bishop for absolutely no reason. Let's just take. But he's 500, so let's not bully the lower rated players. You know, he just didn't know. Now he plays d4. Being a Sicilian defense player, anytime they play d4, you take on d4 because you're trading a pawn that is not in the center for a pawn that is in the center. Okay, knight takes was played. Now I'll develop my bishop, which means I'm attacking the pawn on e4 twice. If he doesn't do anything, we take on e4, and that's even more material. F3, he saw that coming, protected the pawn, and let's just keep developing here. Let's go knight d7. Knight e5 to c4 is an idea. And whenever they play f3, that's kind of like the perfect time to put the bishop on d6 because we're able to take on h2. But I really like to wait until the king is castled because bishop to d6 now, he takes on b5, and the game could get a bit tricky. Now that he castles, that's when we play bishop to d6 because we're no longer afraid of knight b5 since bishop takes h2 check is always there. If he plays h3, then I really want to sacrifice, but it's going to take me a while to bring more pieces in the attack. So if he plays g3, I may just play h5 using the hook to open some lines against his king. And if he plays h3, then moves like knight h5 is very, very strong because he's weakening the g3 square around his king. Okay, knight goes back to e2. The guy didn't even try to defend h2. Let's just take the free pawn on h2. And okay, he didn't run the king to h1. He runs the king to f2. I would like for this to be checkmate, but the knight does cover the square, so it's not mate. So instead, I was about to say I'm gonna castle. Let's do it. It's fine. Like, I actually wanted to play rook to d8 without castling, but why just play rook to d8 when I'm able to castle? And it's not like he's able to attack my king in any way. Only thing that I'm afraid of here is pawn to g3, which I actually didn't think about it. Because if he plays g3, my bishop is trapped. But he didn't. He moves the knight out of the way, which was covering g3. But now if I check, there's king e2, so that doesn't really do much for my position. All right, what I'm going to do here is just move this knight out the way, knight c4 ideas. But now that my rook is on the same line as his queen, I want to play e5, which applies pressure to his pinned knight. Okay, so he puts this knight back instead. But now I'm able to play e5, bro. And you're now not able to move this knight because you lose the queen. So I'm just going to take on d4 next move. Now he traps my bishop. But let's just take on d4 first. Bishop takes d4. And The plan if he traps the bishop was to play h5, king over h4, king takes, or h5, rook over h4, rook takes. So let's play h5. I don't think he is in time to immediately just take the bishop without losing back some material. Unless he uses the king, but his king is going to be too exposed and he may just be getting checkmate. So this is what we saw. Rook h1, we play h4. And if he takes, my bishop escapes. But if he plays rook takes and I take, he's not able, well, he is able to play knight takes, but then he loses the rook. Okay, so he just didn't take the bishop. But now once I take, he shouldn't be able to win my bishop anymore. I mean, there's knight takes, but then actually there's not even any knight takes. Okay, he hits the knight. Let's not move the knight and play queen to d7 because I'm threatening checkmate on h3. And remember, we spoke about focal points, guys. It basically means any pawns or square around the opponent's king, those are the squares that we're trying to attack. And it's not really easy for him to guard the mate. He didn't guard the mate, which means that's just checkmate. More Sicilian can against 600 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 600. Let's keep playing some more Sicilian defense. Oh, are we gonna see a Smith? Oh, nah, it's not. He took with the queen, so now I'm just gaining a free tempo on the queen. Okay, queen moves over to a5. Let's just use the time to get the regular Sicilian can set up. Pawn e6, queen c7. He develops the knight. First, let's go a6. It doesn't really prevent the bishop from going here, though, because if he puts the bishop there and I take, I'm losing my rook. Okay, I mean, I wouldn't play pawn c3 here, honestly. I really wouldn't play. I'd at least put the knight on c3, bro. I guess he just doesn't want my knight to move forward, but that's not what I'm going for. I'm going for the king, and I'm preparing for his king to get castled. Let's keep developing. Okay, he develops the knight. Is he planning on castling on the queen side here? Let's go bishop e7 and see. Oh, and by the way, guys, if you go to the membership section of YouTube, you're going to see a bunch of videos, and that is me explaining the theory behind all the types of opening videos that I make. So if you want to get access to those videos, consider watching them by joining my memberships. It's going to cost you like $2.05, but I promise you it's worth it. Okay, he castles his king on the queen side, so I'm obviously going to just castle my king on the king side. The whole idea of h5, knight g4 can't work now since there's no king over there. So now my plan is to start an attack on his king. And that's why he plays h5. He wants to attack my king. All right, how am I going to do this? Pawn to b5 doesn't work because of takes. Or maybe I could just do it just to open the b file, but let's go d5. I'm just going to play d5. The plan is to get my bishop to d7. If he takes on d5, I go knight takes, gain some tempo on his bishop. All right, he plays bishop to d3. That's not a bad move. Now I'm going to go bishop to d7, put my bishop on the same line as his queen, and now pawn to b5 is possible, since if he takes, I'm able to take back because my rooks are connected. Queen goes back, guys he's playing some good chess, to be honest. But let's just continue with our plan. Pawn to b5. I'm trying to get him to move the pawns in front of his king, or just at least try to attack the pawns in front of his king. The thing about his last move is if he takes on d5 now, I don't want to take with the knight because then I lose my h7 pawn. So I have to take with the pawn, which is fine. But if he plays pawn push, I'm just going to take and it's just a free pawn. It's what we want to see. It's exactly what we want to see. This guy needs to know that he shouldn't be pushing pawns on the side that his king is on. Already I'm going to hit him with rook to c8, put my rook on the same line as his queen and his king, and now if he's not careful, he'll find himself into a lot of trouble. Okay, he plays h5. Tactic alert, guys. Very nice tactic, by the way. No, 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 no. Don't pause the video. I don't think it works. Yeah, it works. It works. It works. The rook is on the same line as his queen and his king. We sacrifice the knight. Because if he takes back, maybe he thinks we're just going to trade the queens off the board. And why is this guy trading queens and he just sacrifices knight? Nope. I'm just going to move my queen out the way. Oh, shoot. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, bro. Because there's bishop c5. It's weird. Okay, he took. I think I have to do it now, though. It's too late. Bro, bishop c5. He thought his queen was hanging and he just sacked his queen. My plan though was to take on e4 and try to go for a fork here, which he still allows. So taking on e4 is still a fork and this is just game. Okay, he sacked. Let's just take, sack the bishop again. Maybe he thinks he's gonna take here, but now I take with check. So now you have to move your king. And this is gonna lead to mate, bro. Poor guy. If he puts his king in the corner, well, I was about to say check, but then he's gonna block. So if he puts his king in the corner, I'm just gonna take on b4 first. Knowing that he's not able to take my knight, since my queen covers all of these light squares, all I need to do to checkmate his king is to play bishop c3. So he saw that. He saw the idea, pulls the bishop back. I need more pieces in the game though. Let's go rook to c2, just bringing more pieces in the game. And putting your rooks on the opponent's second is always going to be good. If he takes queen takes and I'm threatening all sorts of checkmates, and I'm still threatening to just sacrifice my rook for the bishop and then simply checkmating him on c3, since the bishop is the main defender of c3. Okay, he traded. Now we take here. I'm threatening mate here. I'm threatening mating to here. There's nothing he could do to prevent them. He took on d7, but that's just a checkmate. More Sicilian Khan against 700 players. Stick around. Opponent is now 700. Let's play some more Sicilian Khan. Knight f3, we play e6. Next move is to play a6. Whenever you see d4, we take on d4, then we play a6. Now, once they develop the knight, we play queen c7. The purpose of having the queen on c7 is to target h2. So they develop their bishop. Let's go knight f6. Idea is to play an eventual knight g4 to create some checkmating threats once they castle their king. So he castled his king, and I'm going to immediately play the move pawn to h5. The moment you see them castling, that's when you want to play pawn to h5, because the whole idea is to play this move knight g4. Now, because he plays bishop e3, not only am I attacking the bishop, I'm also threatening a checkmate. So we basically get the perfect Sicilian Khan setup with the knight on g2, the queen on g7, and our 700 rated player decided to save his bishop, which means that's just a checkmate. Our opponent is now 800. Let's play some more Sicilian Khan. Ooh, immediate d4. This is a sign that we're going to be facing a Smith-Morra gambit with pawn c3. Okay, the thing about the Smith-Morra gambit is we can still play with the same Sicilian Khan setup. The only little difference is white gets an additional tempo. And obviously, if there's a difference, it means black also gets something. So what do we get as black? We get the extra pawn. So now, as you guys could see, bishop to f4 was played, which means there's no longer any queen going to c7, which is fine. I think he also wants to play knight b5, so let's just play a6 here, just regular Sicilian Khan things. And after knight f3, since we can't put the queen on c7, let's just develop normally with knight c6. Okay, bishop to c4 was played. My opponent is just developing very normally here. But with this bishop on c4, it allows me to play pawn b5, which gains a free tempo on his bishop. So he's basically forced to move the bishop again. And one thing that I like to do, especially when playing against the Smith-Morra, is to put the knight on e7, then to g6, because we can't be using the same Sicilian Khan setup, so we have to know what to do when they play something else. And this something else in this case is the Smith-Morra. So we're now hitting the bishop, and even if the bishop goes back, the idea of queen c7 still may not work, since the knight is not on f6 and it's on g6, and there's no knight g4 ideas. The only way this would work is if I play knight e5, then knight g4, which will take some time, and I think it's best if I at least finish my development first. Ooh, bishop d6 is also very interesting, because after the trade queen takes, my king is not able to castle easily. Now, instead of just taking and allowing his queen on a good squares, I'm actually just going to leave the bishop on e7. Again, guys, you have to remember to take is a mistake. You should only trade if it helps your position. If I take this bishop, the queen takes and I'm helping his queen. But if I put the bishop on e7 and he takes my bishop, my queen takes and he's helping my queen. And by the way, remember that we're ahead by a pawn. So the more he trades, the easier the game is going to be for us. So he didn't move the queen, and now I'm just going to use that time to get my king out the center. Now he plays rook to d8. All right, there's a lot of pressure on the d file. For example, bishop b7, then he's going to take and then take here. So before I do anything, let's try knight a5 and hit this bishop. If he pulls the bishop back, my knight could go to the c4 square, which applies more pressure to the bishop. Okay, bishop goes back. Now this is exactly what we planned. Um, I think I'm able to eliminate the bishop first and then go knight c4 because then I'm forking the queen and the pawn. And then after the queen moves out the way, I take on b2 and I'm attacking the rook. Like if I play immediate knight to c4, there's takes, and it gives him time to protect b2. So let's take on d6 first. Remember what we said, only trade if it helps you. How does me taking on d6 helps my position? Because I know that I'm going to be forking him on the next move. Unless he has queen to b4, which I did not see. But we're still going to play knight to c4. If queen b4, I want to say I have a5, but there's a drawback. It's no longer guarding b7. Queen takes b7. There's bishop a6. Hits the queen. There's queen d7. And that's just way too much drama. So if queen b4, then I'm just going to try to go queen f6. Maybe even knight to f4, then queen f6, and try to start some attack on his king. I forgot about the whole queen b4, but he puts the queen on d4 instead. I still have to be careful because after I takes, the queen x-ray the knights. The thing is, there's no aggressive squares he could put this knight. So he moves the rook out the way. I pull my knight back, and we're now ahead by 2 whole pawns. So now I'm chilling. I still kind of don't want to put my bishop on b7 because I know this pawn is going to be weak. But unless I'm able to go bishop b7 pawn d6, okay, now he plays e5. I'm attacking this pawn twice, but he's also guarding it twice. But what if now I play bishop b7, since I'm attacking the knight, which is one of the main defender of the pawn? That could help me to win a third pawn if he's not careful. I mean, maybe he's just going to take on g6 though and just eliminate my knight. But in these cases, taking with the f pawn could be good. It opens the file for the rook, and it does not really weaken the e6 pawn. Okay, he found it. He took on g6. All right, I'm going to take with the f pawn, opening the file for the rook. There's a lot of cases where taking with the f pawn is good, but most times taking with the h pawn is going to be better. Now he plays knight e4, and I have some ideas here. Trade queen takes, sack queen takes, knight d2 fork, and that's just converting. I think that's just conversion, to be honest. But I also like rook f4. No, I don't like rook f4 because there's knight f6. And if I sack the queen, he takes the queen. And after I take his queen, he takes my queen. I'm able to fork in the end though, but what's the best way to convert this into a win? I think the best way is just to trade all the pieces. Like if you're ahead in material, just trade every single piece off the board. It's the easiest way to win a game that you're already winning. Okay, so the queen took. And okay, initially the plan was to take and then fork, which is fine. But I don't want to do all of that, to be honest. I'm thinking about queen b6 or queen c7. I'm going to choose queen c7. The idea is to just apply as much pressure to e5. If he moves the knight, e5 is hanging, d2 is hanging. So I'm expecting him to put something. Okay, he pins the knight instead, which is also fine. And this rook, I'm just going to play rook to c8, also put this rook on the file. I'm also trying to play rook c5, and that could blunder my rook, so I had to move that rook out of the way. Then he plays rook to d8. All right. What do we trade off the board now? This pawn is very, very weak. Yeah, let's just get the queens off the board. We still want to trade something. And with 2 extra pawns, just trading the queens off the board and then start rolling or pass pawn up the board should be the easiest way to win this. Okay, rook moves. Adding some defense to the queen. Okay, let's just trade. That's the plan anyways. And then after rook takes, I'm going to go rook c5. Now his e-pawn is extremely weak. Knight g4. Bro, that was the knight was holding his pawn together. Now he just lost the pawn. Why would you even move the knight out the way like that? Now I have 2 pieces attacking the pawn. I can't take with the knight though because I lose the rook. But if I take with the rook, oh, I almost blundered because I thought he was able to take, and then if I takes, he take. But if he takes here, I can't take back that rook, and I have to take his knight. Okay, so he trades. Let's take back. Now we're ahead by 3 pawns. Pawn h6 is also chasing away his knight. But this is just going to be for example, okay, he puts his rook on my 7th rank. The knight is already guarding the pawn, so let's just chase his knight out of our half of the board. If he pulls the knight back, then we're just going to trade. Like, we want all the trades here. Oh, he centralized the knight instead. Let's kick the knight again. And oh, I don't think I'm playing this as accurately as I need to play it. He puts the knight on the wrong square though. Let's just roll the pass pawn up the board. Pass pawns must be pushed. And He's using his king to try to defend. Let's keep rolling the pawn up the board. King goes over. Hit the knight. Knight move check. Doesn't really help. Let's just hit the knight. I think I have to do it. The rook belongs behind the pass pawn. And then once the knight goes here, I want to check, but then the knight is just going to take. And that's why I'm going to play the move knight to c4 first. Like, remember, guys, your endgame technique has to be good. My next move is to play pawn to d2. And if he moves the king, I check, I queen the pawn, we win the game. If he just puts the knight on d2, okay, moving the king, it's kind of like the same thing because now I'm going to push. And if he takes, I'm just going to take. I'm going to check him and then queen the pawn. So I think it's best if he sacrifices the knight here. He didn't. So now we check. The king has to move. I queen the pawn, and this should end in checkmate very soon. After he takes, since the king is exposed and the knight is unprotected, he resigns. More Sicilian Khan against 900 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 900. Playing some more Sicilian Khan. Ooh, knight c3. This is a sign that he's playing the closed Sicilian, but we're still going to be playing the same setup where we play e6, we play a6, we play queen c7. And sometimes they play with g3 here. Nah, he plays d4. I think he's just getting everything mixed up because a knight should be on f3 if he's going to play d4. Now if I take on d4, queen takes d4, knight c6, this is just a free tempo on the queen. Is he going to pull his queen all the way back? That's weird, but let's just play a6. We're basically playing the regular Khan setup where he didn't develop his knight, he's just developing his knight. Now we play queen to c7. Okay, he develops the bishop to d3. Let's continue to develop. Knight goes to f6. And if he castles the king, I immediately throw the knight on g4 with the idea of checkmating him on h2. So he did castle. Now we play knight g4. This is the whole idea of the Sicilian Khan, by the way, guys. You put the queen on c7, point it towards h2. You play a6 and e6 so that way this knight is not able to harass you. And if they play h3, we don't need to move the knight. We can simply play h5. Because if they take the knight and we take back, we hit their knight, and if the knight move, queen h2 is still going to be a checkmate because this rook on h8 will get the open file. Okay, he plays e5, and he's basically just saying, hey, I don't want the drama. I'll give you a pawn. And okay, I could take the pawn. I think it's best if I just take the pawn. I mean, I have 1, 2, 3 attackers. He only has 1 defenders. I wanted to play h5 here, but bishop f4 also makes some sense. So let's just take back the pawn. It's fine. So knight takes. Now we take, applying some pressure to his bishop. And by the way, I could still play h5 with the idea of playing knight g4 and still threaten the same checkmate on h2. Okay, but now he plays h3. So there's no knight going to g4. And I'm sure he wants his bishop on the f4 square. So let's just take the bishop on d3. I'm ahead in material. I want to trade. Plus, I'm getting the bishop here. And now I'm going to play this move pawn to b5. The purpose of moving the pawn to b5 is to get the bishop on b7. And once the bishop is on this diagonal, I could be threatening a lot of stuff, but I really don't need to do much anymore. Like, he has no pawns in the center, so rolling my central pawns up the board is an idea. But I'm just going to be focusing on finishing my development first. Okay, he's developing. Let's do the same. Put the bishop on this diagonal. And now he plays rook to d1, which means my pawn on d7 could be under some attack. Let's just keep developing first. Like, he's attacking twice, I'm defending twice. There's nothing to be afraid of here. But he wants to triple up on the file and attack it 3 times. Okay, that's not bad. Let's go rook to d8. So that way, if he plays rook to d1, I'm able to get my king out the center of the board. Oh, shoot. Oh, no, it's fine. I thought he was able to take, but it just means he's going to lose his queen. So he moves the queen out the way. And now I just want to have as much control over the center as possible. For example, if I hit him with pawn to b4, I'm chasing away the knight. He's not able to keep the knight pointing towards the center of the board. So that alone is very, very good for black here. Okay, he pulls the knight back. Queen c6 threatens mate, but he's simply going to play f3. So let's just go bishop to f6 and attack this weak pawn on b2. All right, bishop d4 guards the pawn. But for when I could trade, but I have a better idea of just rolling my central pawns up the board. So if he takes, I takes, and I'm winning the bishop. If he moves the bishop away, I now hit him with d5. And this was kind of like my idea to just roll the pawns up the board since I have two pawns in the center and he has no pawns in the center. All right, now he plays f3. Let's get the rooks on the files first. Like, my pawns are in front of the rooks, but the plan is to roll them up the board. I'm only ahead by one pawn though, but this should be good enough to win. All right, queen f2. She wants to play this. This guy just trapped his own bishop. Where's he gonna put the bishop after I play t2? He trapped his own bishop. So now that I'm ahead in material, I'm now going for all the trades. So rook takes, I play pawn takes, trading everything off the board. And another idea that I have is to get a battery with my queen and my bishop, and then try to check him on h2. But he's making the game even more easier for me. Like, if you're down in material, bro, don't be trying to trade pieces off the board. Like, from here, oh, that's just a pawn. And he's also blundering more free pawns. So there's nothing guarding the pawn. Let's just grab the pawn. Very simple chess. That was a trick. The guy's threatening a checkmate. Don't be winning your games and fall for these simple back rank mating ones. Okay, just a check. Let's just move the king. Now this pawn is hanging, and his knight remains undeveloped and doesn't really have good scores to move to. Okay, queen goes back. I'm not able to take just yet. I could push though. Nah, can't push. There's queen takes. Let's just go queen to f4. For one, I'm threatening to check, which hits the king and the unprotected knight, which wins even more material. But I'm also threatening to play bishop e5, which comes with the idea of checking him here. Okay, queen goes back, which means I'm not able to check here. Very simple way to win this game is queen e3. Force the queens off the board, win the game. But let's go for this idea, and let's see if I'm able to checkmate his king. He plays g3. That's also a free pawn, but I'm going to take on f3 instead because now I'm trying to checkmate him on either h1 or g2. Okay, he moves the queen, which means this is not mate. I could check. There's king up. I could check again. There's king here. And then I check, and that's going to lead to a checkmate. So let's give a check here. King has to move. Then I check here. The king has to go on this square. And then once I take with check, oh, there's actually king here. But this is even better because all I need to do is check him here. The king can't move. The queen has to block. And that's just a checkmate. More Sicilian can against 1,000 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1,000. Still playing some more Sicilian can. Right, knight c3. And we're just going to continue with the same setup. Looks like a closed Sicilian. Sometimes they play g3, bishop g2 here. Some people play f4, some Grand Prix type of setup. Okay, we're seeing it. Pawn to g3. And whenever they play like this, it's going to be a very interesting game. We have to first get our regular setup, and then we start thinking, how are we going to attack here? Like the last time I've played this, I thought about playing h5, h4, but I wasn't seeing my attack coming through. Let me just finish my development first. We know where the pieces belong when we play like this. We know that we're going to play knight f6, bishop e7, maybe b5, bishop b7. And then we could decide where we're planning on castling our king. All right, so he continues to develop. Let's go knight f6, still developing. Hmm. I think he's planning on castling on the queen side, based on what I'm seeing here. But let's just go bishop to e7 first. If he castles on the queen side, I'm happy to castle on the king side. Play with the opposite side castles, and then launch my pawns towards his king. Okay, he moves the bishop again, though. He moves the bishop again. Now, the thing about this is I don't necessarily want to play e5 because then it weakens my d5 score. So I'm just going to play the move pawn to d6 to save my queen. And now I could either play b5, bishop b7, or just bishop d7. Oof. Guy puts his knight on the edge of the board. That cannot be good. It doesn't even do anything. Like, the knight is unprotected, the king is exposed, but if I check, he's just going to pull the knight back. I like knight to d4, which hits the queen, but after queen d1, I still have nothing. So I think it's best if I just play b5 here and attack the knight and just force the knight to go back and just be happy with the extra tempo that he gave me. Now, oh, fruit. That was his idea. That was his idea. Okay. Now, luckily, this does not work, but I did not see that move because the bishop is on the same line as my queen, so I'm not able to take. The reason why this does not work is because my queen is still on the same line as the knight. So if I just play knight d4 here, my knight attacks the queen and my queen attacks the knight. So if he saves the knight, I take the queen. I'm also threatening some forks depending on where he puts the queen. So I'm expecting him to pull his queen back to d1 and then we take the free knight. But I didn't see that move. Another reason why it wouldn't work is I could have also played e5 to hit the bishop, and then after the bishop move, I take the knight. And then after e5, he would have just have two pieces under attack. Ooh. So instead, he took on e6 because it counterattacks my queen. What he missed though is once I just take back the knight, your queen is still under attack. I'm still threatening to fork. And this time, you're gonna get forked because my queen and my knight now attack c2. So he moves the queen. We take on c2 with check. He has to move the king. We take the rook. And we're now gonna be ahead by what? Like a rook and a knight? Okay, he moves the king. We grab the rook here, and this is not just game. All right, he's still trying to develop. Let me get my king out the center of the board first. And then he plays e5, which, okay, the bishop attacks my rook as a discovered attack, the pawn attacks my knight. But I don't necessarily have to lose any material if I just put my knight in the way. The knight also applies some pressure to his bishop. He takes on d6, and now I'm going to take back. And if he wants to trade, the more he trades, the better it is going to be for me because I'm ahead by a rook and a piece. Okay, he took. Let's just take back. And he continues to trade. Like the funny thing about this is if I take the knight, he takes my rook. But because I'm ahead by so much material, I don't care. Like, let him have the rook. In fact, what if I go bishop d5 and trade even some more pieces off the board? Because then I'm hitting the rook and the bishop. So if he takes, I takes, and then I'm hitting the rook. And if he takes my knight, I take his rook. Okay. I guess he just wants to trade. Now, taking the queen is completely winning, by the way. Like, it's completely winning. But he's no longer guarding this pawn. So let's just take the free pawn with check. And then after the king moves out the way, then I'll check him on the back rank. And that could lead to a checkmate. So once he moves the king, we check. Notice how the bishop has to block. Now, what do we know about pinned pieces? You must PP on the PP. So now that the bishop is pinned, we want to apply more pressure to the pinned bishop. Hit him with bishop to h3, and I'm not seeing any way in which he's going to defend that bishop. And if he's not able to defend the bishop, then it will be checkmate on the next move. Okay, he gave me a free queen, but we don't want the queen, bro. That's just a checkmate. More Sicilian can against 1100 rated players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1100. More Sicilian can coming your way. Knight f3, we're going to play the move e6, and if they play d4, we take on d4. And the idea is to play a6, so the knight has no forward move, and then the queen goes to c7 and target h2. So this is going to be what most of you guys are going to be seeing from here. And one thing I like about playing the Sicilian can is sometimes you keep your king in the center of the board, and your king is still very safe. Okay, bishop to e2 was played. Let's continue with our development, applying some pressure to the pawn on e4. There's also some ideas of playing b5, b4, chasing this knight away, winning the pawn on e4. Now, he castle his king. So actually, let's play b5 first. There's usually once they castle, I like to immediately play h5. But let's just play b5 since it comes immediately with a threat of playing b4 to hit the knight. So if he doesn't want to allow that, he's probably going to play a3. But then if he plays a3, it also allows me to play bishop to b7, and it's also more attack on his pawn. So, okay, bishop to g5 is interesting because if I attack his knight, he takes my bishop, and if I take his knight, he moves his bishop. Maybe he's going to take my knight here, and I'm not able to play knight g4. Okay, that's an interesting move. Hit the knight, takes, bishop move, takes, rook over. All right, let's just develop the bishop and apply more pressure here. Like, if he gives up the bishop for the knight, then my rook could also be active on the g file, even though I prefer the whole h5 and knight g4 attacking ideas. Okay, so bishop captured knight. Now we take, and I may not even castle my king on the queen side here because these pawns around my king, they're already guarding the king. Another thing that I could do is just roll this pawn as far up as possible because even if he takes the pawn, then it makes his position way weaker. But for now, we need to finish our development, and I'm going to do the famous provocative move. bishop to d6, provoking a weakness. The plan is to take on h2. I am expecting him to play h3 or g3. Now, after he plays h3 or g3, then I'm just going to move my bishop away because knight takes b5 is usually a threat in these types of positions. Okay, so h3 was played, and now I'll move my bishop away because the sacrifice on b5 is very strong. I still need to finish my development here, and we've successfully managed to provoke a weakness, and my bishop is on the same line as his king, so he has to be careful. Like moving the knight away, if I'm able to play some queen g3 with my rook on g8, that would be nice. All right, b4 was played. Looks like it's blundering a pawn. I can always take stakes and then take on c3. But I think my wait, takes. Nah, I think my bishop is more. Wait, bishop back. He sacked the knight and then tried to check me here though. Do I get greedy and take a pawn here? I think I'm gonna do it. Like, but then if I takes, he sacked the knight here, so that doesn't even work. Let's just pull the bishop back. There's a sacrifice on b5 that I'm afraid of because he's gonna be able to check on d6. But if he sacrifices on b5 and I takes and then he takes, I'm just gonna move my queen because the moment he checks me on d6 and I move the king, it's not like he's gonna be winning any material. Okay, he saw that I was attacking his knight, used the queen to guard it. Let's put the rook on the same line as his king, because if this knight moves out the way, because my bishop is on the same line as his king, and the pawn on f2 is pinned, queen to g3 becomes a very nice threat. Off checkmate, he's not going to be able to take, and I'm going to be threatening to take on h3. Okay, he pulls the knight all the way back. Maybe he wants to play pawn c3. I mean, I need to develop. Let's just develop my knight. Oh, no, 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 no. He just made a drawback mistake, bro. The knight on c3 was guarding the pawn. Yo, I shouldn't have missed this because if I had taken here, then this would have been super hanging. All right, queen takes, he's still going to go bishop to f3. So let's just play bishop takes. I think I need my queen on this diagonal. I'm expecting bishop f3 here, which is what he played. And now I'm going to play queen to g3. This was always my idea, by the way. Like, I'm not threatening mate, but I'm threatening to take on h3 and I'm threatening to take on f3. Honestly, though, honestly, what if he just moves the king out the way? Like, what if he just moves the king? What do I have? Okay, he didn't move the king. He moves the bishop, but it means I still don't have to move my queen. h5. Because if I could get his bishop out the way, then taking on g2 is going to be mate. The thing is, if I play h5, then he's going to move the king. But then I move my queen and his bishop is still under attack. So let's play h5. Keep in mind, he is not able to take this pawn due to checkmate on g2. He needs to move his king. The moment he moves his king, then my queen is under attack. Just typed good game in the chat. Will he resign here? Okay, nah. He plays knight f3. Now my queen is under attack. If I take, ooh, tactics. All I need to do is to take. I'm winning a piece, right? Because he's still not able to win the queen. If he takes with the queen, I take back and then take. And if he takes with the pawn, I take a piece. So this is just tactics right here. Very nice tactic, by the way. Now I see why he's typing good game in the chat. So queen takes, we first trade the queens, and then he has to take the queen, then we grab the bishop. We're completely winning the game. And look on the defense around my king. Now we take, g2 is hanging, e4 is hanging. I'm going to swing this rook in the game. This is like some of the typical plans that you're going to be finding yourself in with the Sicilian Khan. Now he took, we take on e4, g2 is hanging, c2 is hanging. I'm expecting him to pull his rook back to f2, and then at that point I may just play rook to c8 to attack this pawn. Okay, he doubles up on the file, targeting my f pawn. I mean, my plan is to trade everything off the board. Like, I'm ahead in material. Let's go for it. If he takes, I take, and we're still trading everything. Okay, he's trading. Let's just take. And my plan is to pull the bishop back to e4, take on g2, and then the king and pawn endgame is just going to be winning. So he hits the bishop. Let's pull it back. There's also no rook c2 here, by the way. That's just a check. He's going to go here, blunder the rook, trying to attack the pawn. Well, didn't go here, but he still blundered the rook. That's a rook, bro. All right, king moves. Let's just continue taking everything off the board. g2 is now hanging. What the opponent resigns. More Sicilian Khan against 1200 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1200. More Sicilian Khan coming your way. Knight c3, we play e6. Looks like we're going to be seeing a Grand Prix attack, but it doesn't change anything. We're still going to be using our regular Sicilian Khan setup. And I'm choosing to put the queen on c7 before playing a6 because immediate queen c7 threatens the pawn. Now, the thing about this is if he plays knight here, I'm just going to take, which is why he pushed. And now I'm going to play a6. Moving the pawn to e5 this quickly cannot be good, by the way. It's just going to weaken his position. Now he plays d3, which blocks in the bishop. I'm going to go d6, so that way, if he takes and I take back, I have two pieces attacking f4, but he didn't take. He developed his knight. So I'm going to develop my knight and apply even more pressure to his pawn on e5. And by the way, guys, if you enjoy these videos, please enjoy hitting that like button. I'm trying my best to get 1,500 likes on this video because I know you guys like the Sicilian defense. So if you haven't hit the like button as yet, please hit that like button. If you already hit the like button, thank you for liking. Now he plays queen e2, applying more defense to the pawn. And let me just focus on my development here. Pawn to b5, bishop to b7 is the idea. Okay, he finally took on d6. Now we take back. We have two pieces targeting f4. Knight e4 is not bad though. It's decent because if I take this pawn, he's gonna take this pawn, which is fine. It's just a trade. Let's just take. If he he has to be careful now because now he's not able to take on c5. And the reason why he's not able to take on c5, we spoke about this, guys. Remember the main weaknesses that you guys need to know: unprotected pieces, exposed king, queen to b4, checks the king, hit the knight, and just like that, we're winning a piece. So he blocks with the knight. Let's just take the free piece. And then he got his king out the center of the board. Tactics alert, guys. It's just over. Like this guy just walked right into this. We spoke about focal points, right? The queen is already targeting the focal point, which is only being guarded by the king. If I hit him with knight to d4, not only am I threatening a checkmate, I'm also attacking the queen. If he moves the queen, he's mated. If he moves the knight thinking, oh, let's just move the knight and counterattack his knight. No, bro. I take your queen with check. And the opponent resigns. More Sicilian Khan against 1,300 players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1,300. We're playing some more Sicilian defense. Knight f3, we play e6. And then after d4, we take on d4. Now, knight takes d4, we play pawn to e6. This is called the Sicilian defense. It's the Sicilian Khan. And yes, I will be making a video that's explaining the full theory of the Sicilian Khan. And it will be in the membership section of YouTube. So if you're not yet a member, considering subscribing to be a member, and you'll get access to all of these videos. Now, after knight c3, we go queen to c7. And whenever they play bishop to d3, we play knight f6. Like, honestly, guys, this position, you're going to see this a lot. So you kind of want to know how to approach it from here. Now, bishop to g5 isn't a bad move. I mean, he's trying to finish his development. Also, we don't mind if he takes on f6 and double up my pawns, because especially if he castle on the king side, my rook will get the g file. So whenever they play like this, I like to play moves like b5 with the idea of playing bishop to b7, applying some pressure to e4, and he took on f6. So I want you guys to notice what's already happening. He's moving the same pieces more than once in the opening, and he castled his king right where my rook could get the g file. But let's finish my development first. I want my bishop pointing towards g2, and then once I play rook to g8, my rook pointing towards g2. Okay, he's putting his rook on the same line as my king, but there's nothing to worry about here. It's not like he's able to play something like e5. So let's just keep developing, putting my bishop on the same line as his king. And I'm also attacking the knight. Now, if he chooses to pull the knight back to b3, honestly, I think I made a slight mistake here, guys. If you're watching this, I would prefer you guys to put the bishop on d6 first to attack the bishop, or to attack h2, just to force him to move a pawn on the side that his king is on, and then you play bishop c5. But it's not kind of a bit too late, but I'm gonna do it. The reason why I say it's a bit too late now is I wanted to put the bishop on d6, then c5, and then after the knight goes back, I pull the bishop back and maintain the bishop on this diagonal. But now my bishop is gonna have to stay on this diagonal, which is not bad, but the main purpose of the bishop here is to get him to push up on the side that his king is on. Now, let me just finish my development though. Let's just go knight c6. Eventually, I could go knight e5, put my rook on g8, and maybe even castle my king here. Okay, queen moves to f3. He's clearly applying pressure to this pawn. I'm not trying to lose any material just yet. I mean, I think bishop e5 guards the pawn. I think bishop e7 also guards the pawn. Like, I don't think it matters which move I specifically play. But let's play bishop e5 since it guards the pawn and it keeps the bishop active. Right, now we're seeing queen h5, which is not a bad move because I kind of wanted to castle. But the funny thing about this is I'm still gonna castle because I don't care if he wins my f7 pawn. For one, if he takes on f7 and I play something like h5, he's putting his queen at risk of being trapped. But two, I think my position is just gonna be way more active than his. Oh, he plays knight c5. That's a nice move. Bishop back to a8. Let's say he takes. Queen a5 hits the knight. Let's say he goes back. Pawn b4. Oh, pawn b4 hits the knight. And if he moves this knight, which I mean, I think it's losing a knight, I'm putting my queen on the same line as his queen, and bishop h2 could win the queen. I could be cooking something here. Knight takes queen a5. Actually, there's knight takes, because if I take the knight, there's a check here. So it may or may not work. But let's see. Knight takes queen a5. And then what I want to happen is I want my queen, my bishop, and this queen to be on the same line. And then at that point, I will be able to win his queen. Okay, so he grabs the pawn. Let's hit the knight. And what he needs to find is knight takes b5, which is probably a brilliant move because I will not be able to touch this knight due to knight d6. But I should have a way to set this up. Like maybe move my queen up my king. But then if I move my king, knight c5 comes with check. It's very, very risky what I'm doing here. Knight takes b5, maybe rook takes b2, hit the pawn, rook moves. And then I don't have to move since this rook is going to be hanging. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have complicated the game this much, but let's have a look on it. Okay, so knight goes back. Now we play e4, hit this knight, hit this knight. The issue is, which is a, oh no, oh my lord, it's not an issue. I was about to say the issue is there's knight b3, which hits the queen, and then I have to move the queen, and he saves the knight, but it's actually not an issue. Because if, oh, tactics alert, tactics alert. It's exactly what I was setting up. The queen and the both queens are now on the same line. And because my bishop is in the way, bishop h2 check, and we win the opponent's queen. This is called a discovered attack, guys. And yes, it's a tactic that will be in my upcoming book. And again, the book is finished. I'm just working on getting the hard copy on Amazon now. So you guys will be hearing about it very, very soon. But my next move is just to grab his queen. I'm ahead by a queen. His knight is under attack. Just like that, we're winning the game. Okay, bishop goes back, which is also bad because now the knight is hanging. Obviously, I can't take the knight since my queen is under attack. But if I play queen to e5, his king is in check. And then after he gets out of check, that's when I take the knight. And we're winning even more material. And the opponent resigns. More Sicilian Khan against 1,400 players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1,400. Playing some more Sicilian Khan. Knight f3, we play e6. Eventually, we play a6. But whenever they play d4, against any Sicilian, we're taking on d4. But now we play a6. So this is the Sicilian Khan. We've just seen, well, not c4, but we're still going to play the move queen to c7 here. Knight c3, very normal development, by the way. Let's go knight f6, also finishing our development. Bishop to d3, the opponent is developing. And now I'm going to play b6. I can't play b5, so I'm going to choose to play b6. And the moment they castle, that's when we hit them with the annoying h5. Now, if you notice, the opponent decided to just play h3, which is fine. We kind of like to see h3 because he's pushing pawns on the side that his king is on. So let's just continue to finish our development here. In some cases, we're still going to be able to play knight to g4. So for example, if I develop my bishop to hit the knight and he puts the knight on f3, knight g4 takes, and he's not going to be able to move his knight. So also, there's another idea that you guys need to keep in mind. If once you play bishop to c5, hit the knight, if they pull the knight back to b3, then you can pull your bishop back to e7. And the reason why this is good for black is because you basically force the opponent's knight out the center of the board, and the knight is usually strongest in the center. So he did pull the knight to b3. Let's go bishop e7. And also, I'm now able to play knight c6 without him trading. So knight c6, and by the way, castling on the queen side is now good for us. f4. He's being very aggressive. Maybe he wants to play e5 and attack the knight. So I'm thinking about just playing d6 here, especially since the whole idea of checkmating him on h2 is no longer there. I should be able to just play d6. And by the way, we're now in a Scheveningen type of setup or a hedgehog type of setup. So I think I've made a video with this setup where all the pawns were here. This is also a very strong setup to play. It's the setup I play with the black pieces when white plays d4 and I'm not really sure the opening that they're playing. I just play with that setup. All right, queen f3. Queen is on the same line as my bishop, so that's not a bad thing to see. Let's go knight d7 here. We're definitely not going to be castling on the king side with this very weak pawn on h5. There's some ideas of playing h4 followed by knight h5 with the idea of putting the knight on g3, but I'm probably going to castle on the queen side here. There's some knight c5 ideas as well, which applies pressure to e4. Okay, rook is joining the game. And I think now it's just safe to get my king out the center of the board. Now, I think this is it's a safe position, but it's also very dynamic because the pawns that should have been in front of my king has been moved. Knight went back in the center of the board, and usually in these types of position, we want to either play d5 or e5 if we time it properly. Queen c5 pins the knight though, so something I'm thinking about. There's d5. If I play d5 and he plays e5, I take it the queen. But I'm assuming he's going to take first and then open this file. There's also some knight b4 ideas, so I have to be careful. For now, let's just play king to b8 as a prophylactic move, getting the king off the c file. Now he plays b4, and now I should be able to play d5. Because now if I play d5, let's say he takes, he's also losing the knight. If he takes this way, I takes. Yeah, d5 should be good here. Very nice move, d5. And it's because of this unprotected knight and the fact that my bishop is on the same line as his queen. So anybody's first instinct would be to play e5. But if he plays e5, I take on c4 and his queen is under attack and his bishop is going to be under attack. I mean, he's able to play bishop e4, but I'm just going to play knight takes and I could be winning material. Okay, with that being said, he moves his queen off the same diagonal as my bishop, protecting the pawn on c4. But this is weird though, because if I take on c4, bishop takes c4, rook to c8 hits the bishop twice. He's not able to guard the bishop twice. And if he moves the bishop, I'm winning the knight on c3. So taking on c4 could be winning material. Everything I'm saying is could be winning material. But yeah, bro, like, how is he not gonna lose a piece here? Like, I'm taking a piece next move. I'm expecting to see some sacrifices here. I think my king is safe, so not really afraid of any sacrifices. His pawn on b4 was also unprotected, so could have took, but I think I'm winning material here. Okay, he plays e5. Offense is the best defense. The thing about this is, if I take a piece and then he takes a piece, I'm just going to take back, and his bishop and his knight is still under attack. If I takes, queen takes, and then he takes, same thing. I just take back. His bishop and his knight is under attack. The thing about this, though, is my knight is going to be unprotected, but if he sack this knight to win this knight, then his bishop is still going to be unprotected. And I think I have to take, by the way, because if I move my knight, then this could be hanging in a lot of cases. Like, let's say knight d5, there's also knight take. So I think I just have to take on c4 here. Okay, why would you take with the bishop, bro? You took with the bishop. I mean, I'm taking with the pawn, right? Yeah, let's just take with the pawn. That was kind of weird. The thing is, my knight is always unprotected on d7. And remember, unprotected pieces causes tactics, guys. And by the way, if I could get 1,500 likes on this video, I'd greatly appreciate it. I know that you guys like the Sicilian defense, so if you haven't liked the video as yet, please consider hitting that like button. Okay, now he took on f6. The thing is, that knight is still unprotected, and I am ahead by a piece. So, and because my knight here is unprotected, like, I'm thinking about taking on f6 with the bishop, though, because this is going to be hanging. Let's say it takes, knight takes. I can always take here. Yeah, let's actually take with the bishop. Now there's two pieces hanging again, and I'm already ahead by a piece. Okay, so he traded the queens. Now we take, hitting this knight, hitting this knight. Even if he pulls the knight back to e2, I could take. I mean, my knight on d7 will always be hanging, though. That's the thing. But if it's just a case where we're trading, I'm also fine with that. So knight back to f3 was played. If I take his knight, he takes my knight. I take his knight, he takes my knight. I take this knight, and we trade all the pieces off the board. That's one way to do it. Or I save my knight and then force him to put this knight in an uncomfortable scenario. Let's do it that way. Actually, let's go knight f8. And so that way, eventually, I can go knight g6. I also want to play rook to g8 and target his weak g2 pawn. But the principal thing to do in this scenario would have been to just let the trade happen. But I'm not comfortable with a rook on my seventh rank, to be honest. Okay, so he saves the knight. Rooks needs files. Now we put the rook on the file. This pawn is hanging, by the way, but I kind of need more than a pawn in this position. There's also rook c2, which hits the unprotected pawn and the unprotected knight, and I'm getting my rook on his second. So he moves the king out the way. Now we go rook c2, hit the knight, and if he moves the knight, he's losing this pawn. So I'm assuming he's going to protect the knight, but he's also losing this pawn. Okay, rook defense. If I take, rook takes is not possible due to take, so he has to play pawn takes, and that's already ugly for him. But I like knight to g6 to attack this pawn, seeing that the rook is unprotected. If I'm able to take on f4, he's not able to take back because of the pin. And he missed it, so he's trying to protect this pawn instead. So let's just take. Remember, guys, unprotected pieces causes tactics in a position. He guarded the knight, and how do we? Actually, knight here is a fork. I want to sacrifice something here, but I mean, if you see a fork, you just take the fork. I'm going to take on f2 with check. By the way, if he moves this rook, I take, and then another knight is hanging, and I'm ahead by 4 points. Good game, bro. So he chose to counterattack my rook. The thing about this is, for one, I could take with check, who I could also just take with the rook, and his rook is still going to be under attack. And g2 is now under attack. And even if he tries rook g1, I eliminate this knight. And then if the knight takes, my bishop is now attacking g2, which is why he resigns. But more Sicilian can against 1500 level opponents. Stick around. Opponent is now 1500. More Sicilian defense coming your way. So knight f3, we're going to be playing e6, and then after d4, we take and then play a6. This is the Sicilian can. Now, the whole setup is the queen goes to c7, and the knight goes to f6. This bishop could go to e7, d6, c5, or b4, depending on the position. But with this pawn on c4, I don't think we want to play bishop to b4 in this position. So, okay, bishop to d3. And anytime we play bishop c5, they usually pull the knight back to b3. And I think we usually pull the bishop back to e7. That's actually a little idea that I've seen the high elo players use. But let's just finish our development first. I know that a knight goes to f6, so we're going to play f6. All right, now we're seeing knight to c3. There's bishop to c5, but I'm assuming he's going to play bishop to e3 at that point. So, and the thing is, we're not able to play b5 due to this pawn. But if you're not able to play b5, just play b6. It's fine. And then you go bishop to b7. And most times, this knight goes to c6. But I usually just like to delay putting the knight on c6 because, after the knight takes, it's just a trade. And if you do this trade, then it kind of steers a bit away from the Khan idea that we're playing with h5, which is this idea. They castle, we play h5, we put the knight on g4, we start the attack on their king. Yes, with our king still in the center. Now the queen goes to e2. Let's continue with the plan. Knight g4, threatening the mate. And f4 is a move here, or g3 is a move. If they play f4, then bishop to c5 could be very strong because then this knight is pinned. So I'm assuming we're going to see this move, pawn to g3. And that's what we want to see. Whenever they play g3, eventually we're going to play h4 and then open the file pointing towards their king. But we can't play h4 with the knight on g4. So sometimes we go knight f6, other times we go knight e5. But if he plays g3, I'm more than likely just going to finish my development because, playing the Sicilian can, sometimes you could get carried away by only using the pieces that are only developed to do the attack. But you have to remember that you need all your pieces in the attack. So we did see pawn to g3. Let's finish our development. Bishop goes to b7. The plan is to control this diagonal pointing towards the king. And okay, eventually I'm going to play knight c6. 3. Why a3? Is he trying to play b4 on the next turn? All right. Yeah, maybe he's trying to play b4 on the next turn, and then maybe even bishop to b2. I'm wondering if I should go bishop to c5 now. Hit the knight. Hit the knight. There's always knight b3 though, that's the thing. Knight c6 takes. Usually we go d takes, but then I'll be blocking my bishop. So let's spend one more turn to play development moves. Let's go bishop to, or maybe I should just play bishop c5. Let's just play bishop c5, hit the knight, because now he's not able to play b4. And if he puts the knight on b3, there's no b4. So maybe at that point, he needs to pull the knight back to f3. Okay, so knight went back to f3. Let's continue with development here. Let's go knight c6. I have some plans of moving a knight back to e5. I'm also thinking about playing h4 now, since I'm not going to be blundering my knight. But if I play h4, there's always knight takes. But if he plays knight takes, there's actually rook takes, because he's not able to takes due to queen takes. So I actually could have played h4 here. All right, anyways, he hits the bishop. We have to do something about this. I could go knight d4. I actually calculated knight to d4. Knight takes, bishop b2, queen e5. Hits the bishop, doesn't really gain much though. So let's just pull the bishop back to e7. And now I'm thinking about just playing h4 on the next move. Maybe I should have played it this move, but let's see what he does. Okay, the bishop finally moves, and now we play h4. That's the idea. The knight is unprotected now, by the way, which is on the same line as the queen. But if he moves this knight, I mean, it gives us time to save our knight, and in some cases, we could just take. Sack the knight and then take on h2, because this light squared bishop is still very active on this diagonal. Not because there's three pieces in the way, it means it's not super active. And remember, knight takes is not a move. Oh my god, he took with the knight because he thinks if I take with the bishop, he takes this knight. But no, I take with the rook, and taking with the rook protects my knight. And then after he takes on h4, that's just a checkmate. More Sicilian Khan against 1600 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1600. More Sicilian Khan coming your way. Knight f3, we go e6, and if they play d4, we always take on d4, followed by playing a6. Now, this is the typical way how you play against the Sicilian, which is why we're going to be seeing most of this video. Knight c3, we go queen c7. This is the Khan setup. And after bishop to d3, we play knight f6. We're seeing a lot of this video, by the way. And if they castle the king, we play h5. The plan is to go knight g4. So he chose to play h3 to prevent knight g4. And that's why I'm going to play this move, pawn to b6, just to finish my development. Now, one thing I will be telling you guys is pulling the knight back to f3 is going to be doing more harm than good for white's position, because now I'm going to put the knight on g4. Even with the pawn in h3, I'm going to play knight g4. And I'm kind of setting up like a fishing pole type of scenario where if he takes my knight and I take his knight, he's not able to move his knight, which is why he chose to play the move g3. But once they play g3, I want you guys to play bishop c5. Look at this. The bishop is now on the same line as the king. Now, keep in mind, guys, we may not be able to deliver a checkmate here, but what we want is for the opponent to be pushing as much pawns on the side that their king is on. So, okay, bishop to f4 was played. Pawn to e5. I think I have to play pawn to e5 to hit the bishop. I'm looking on the idea of going queen to d8, but maybe then he's gonna take, and then if I takes, I'm like, if I'm not able to quickly get my knight to, or my queen to h4, then it may not work for me. But let's think about it. Queen moves to d8, takes. Maybe even knight here is an idea. So let's just play e5. One downside of e5 is, I was about to say, it allows the knight to jump in. He did it immediately. But I'm just going to move my queen and just try to ensure that I'm keeping the c7 square protected. Eventually, I may play bishop b7 and eliminate this knight, or knight f6 and eliminate this knight. But once we get him to push 2 pawns in front of his king, then I'm going to retreat my knight and then continue my attack. So the technical term for this is we're provoking a weakness. Like sometimes you just create a threat of a checkmate just to provoke the weakness. So now he took my knight. I'm now going to use the time to take his bishop instead of taking back. And depending on what he plays here, I may take on g3 and punish him for the spin, or I take back on g4 with the idea of playing queen h6 and threaten some checkmates. So he did take on h4, but unfortunately what he missed was the moment I take on g3, his pawn is not able to take back due to the pin. Like the h pawn will always be there for me to take, and I'm gonna swing my queen over in the attack. Now it's still a very complex game, by the way, guys. But in terms of whose king is safer, it has to be black. In terms of who has better development, has to be white, but he's about to get checkmated. Look at this. The pawn on f2 is overworked, right? And it's the main defender of the knight. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take on f2, eliminate the main defender of the knight with check, and then on the next move, he's going to lose the knight. This is how dangerous the Sicilian is. Okay, I wasn't expecting him to take with the king. He decides to take with the king. Queen to f4 is a move here, applying pressure to the pin knight. There's queen to e2, which is very strong. Maybe I should just take on h5 here. I need to finish my development though, so I don't want to be moving the pieces that already been moved. You know, I really want to play knight c6 with the idea of playing queen here. Well, let's see. Yeah, let's just go knight c6. Because if I takes, he's probably going to even play rook h1, and I want to at least have the chance to castle quickly. So bishop to b7, and then queenside castle, and then his king is just going to be very weak. And the fact that I was behind in development is not even going to be a thing anymore. So queen e2 was played. He has to apply as much defense to his knight. Let's finish our development. Bishop goes to b7. Still not in a rush to take this pawn because I'm assuming he's going to go rook h1. I want it to be a case where after I take the pawn, I'm able to swing the rook over to h8. Now he moves the king out the way, so he's no longer pinned. There's a check here. Doesn't do much, but now I'm able to take. Now I should be able to take since there's no rook h1. Very good. So I'm ahead by a pawn, and the next move is the castle. Okay, that's a nice move. The knight is no longer pinned. My queen is under attack. This is under attack. I have to ensure that I move the queen somewhere where I'm keeping the defense on g7. So queen f6 is a move. There's e5. So I think queen, no, but then if queen g6, there's rook g8. So queen f6, e5. Okay, that's a very annoying move. Sack the rook and then play king f8 is an idea, with the idea of playing rook to e8. At that point, he just needs to move his king though. Queen f8. All right, I'm going to play queen f8. It's not a move that I want to play, but I think I have to play it. And then I'm going to castle on the next turn. Oh my lord, it's actually dangerous, guys, because even if I castle, a6 could be hanging. Or maybe I should go knight b4, hit the bishop, guard the pawn, and then if he saves the bishop, I castle, or if he allows me to get the bishop here, then I castle. Although I still have the bishop here. Okay, so he still plays e5. Maybe the knight wants to go here. The bishop is now guarding the knight. I would love to castle. Okay, actually, I should be able to castle because if he takes, there's a drawback. So let me just get my king out the center of the board first. At least I could say, no, I'm safe. Knight back to g3, though, is an idea. Hits the rook, so that way this is under attack and he's not losing material. If knight g2, rook h3 hits back the knight. So in terms of who is more developed, it's actually black because all my pieces are now doing something. Every piece except my d rook, but I can always swing it over to the e file. But all his pieces are doing something except his a rook. So Yvonne's idea of playing knight g3 so that way a6 is hanging, but my whole plan was to play rook to h3 anyways. So if he still decides to take this, he's gonna lose the knight. And okay, maybe he plays queen here or centralize the knight. That's also a move. All right, my bishop is under attack, but this is a very powerful knight, so I don't even think I want to save my bishop. I'm just going to play d5 and try to force him to take. And okay, obviously I forgot about the fact that a6 was hanging. But if he takes and I take back with the queen and then he takes, I should have something. Like, his king is just not safe. He decided to take en passant instead. So this is still hanging. And this is what he wants. Knight b4, there's knight take, so I think I have to play bishop takes here, and then he's still able to take on a6. I'm going to try to play rook e8 and apply some pressure on the e file. Okay, he took with check. Weird move. Oh, shoot, shoot, shoot. Fudge. If I take the knight, I lose a rook. What the heck? What? God, I can't take the knight, bro. I didn't see that. I'm down by a piece. What did I miss? God, I think I'm losing now. It's crazy. All right, bishop takes. Nah, I think he's gonna save his knight. Knight takes b7. Can I even try rook to e8 to pin his queen? No, there's bishop e4, but then I have f5, so I could try. I'm gonna try it. It's losing, but I'm gonna try it. All right, I was expecting that queen move. He took his queen off the same line as the king. Now his knight is hanging, but if I take his knight, he takes my rook. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna sacrifice my rook for the knight. And then after he takes, then I'm gonna take the knight. The bad thing about this is I'm gonna be down by an exchange, but that's also the good thing because I was about to be down by an entire piece. All right, so queen takes was played. Queen takes. There's queen takes, rook takes. There's also queen takes. So let's just play queen takes and focus on the activity. He's only ahead by 1 point, by the way, guys. And his A rook is still not in the game. So if we want to be very technical about what's happening, I still have three pieces that is working. Well, one, two, three, four pieces that is working. And he only has three pieces that is working. So if I play my cards right, I could still get something out of this. But he just needs to bring the last piece in the game. But his king is still going to be unsafe. Queen takes f7 will be on the board, by the way. I think he has to play that. Queen takes, there's knight e5 though, which hits the queen and the bishop. So technically, I'm also getting back the pawn, but I'm not in the trading business here. I don't want to be trading too many pieces. Okay, he took, was expecting that move. I think I have to try knight e5, hit the queen, hit the bishop. And if he puts his queen on a square where it protects the bishop, then I don't think I want to take because then he's going to play queen takes and the guy wants to trade. So I think he's going to try queen to b3 here. Oh, well, if okay, there's also this. Oh, that's strong. Such a strong move. Because now if I takes after the trade, then my queen is pinned. And I, come on, bro, don't be offering me draws. Have some respect. Wait, knight f3 check. I thought this was winning. But he's able to play rook takes. I think I need to get out of this pin. Knight check. How are you ahead in material and offering me draws? Let's just get out of the pin. Now I'm threatening to take here. So I'm assuming he's going to swing the rook in the game. Maybe pawn to g5 is an idea, and if queen takes, I check, and then he's only going to be ahead by 1 point again. But for some reason, I don't want the game to be a draw, even though I'm losing. Pawn to g5 is probably the best move, and if he takes, I check, fork the queen and the king, and if he takes, bishop takes, hits the rook. But the possibility of this ending in a draw is just too high. All right, so rook is now in the game, which means all his pieces are active. Again, if I check, he simply plays rook takes. So check doesn't work. Put the rook on the same line as the king. He pulls the bishop back. Then I check. Still plays rook takes. Okay, maybe I should try g5. I think he's not gonna take because he sees this, but or I think he's just gonna do it to simplify the game because he wants a draw. But if that's the case, I mean, his king is gonna be way weak. So g5 takes. Yeah, let's try g5. His king is gonna be very weak. I need to be fast now though, because the time is now ticking and he has a bit more time on the clock than me. If he takes, there's also a check here, but I don't think that do much. This is a very complicated position, but I think both sides have winning chances. White is able to win if he doesn't blunder a tactic and just keep his material advantage. Black is able to win if he's able to attack the white's king the right way. So this is a position that you guys could call an imbalanced position. Okay, queen moves. On the same line as my king, he didn't take. There's knight g4, which hits the queen again, but I'm assuming then he's gonna take. There's pawn push. Bishop goes back to e2, which hits my queen. Okay, maybe check. Pawn push, I takes. Check. No, pawn push, I can't take. So check, pawn push, I takes. Rook takes. Check, check. Okay, I think it's this. I think it's check and then check. Oh, but he's able to block with the queen though. So pawn push. Knight check still doesn't work due to rook takes. Knight g4 is a move. So pawn push, check. Yeah, let's check. If queen block, there's a check here as well. And I think he's going to want to trade. Funny thing is, my king is like super safe. So I don't really want to move my bishop. Like his king is the one who is under attack. Blocks with the rook. Knight g4 should win the game. Blocks with the queen, check. King up, check. Yo, is this winning? Okay, he blocks with the rook, which means the rook is pinned. Knight takes, rook takes. Check, there's king up. I think knight g4 is the move here. The rook is pinned. We're just going to apply pressure to the pinned rook. Knight takes. Okay, he moves the queen. The thing about this is, if I takes, he's just going to play queen takes. So I'm trying to see if I'm able to do some more removing the guard tactic. There's a check, but then there's king up. Ooh, look at this. Boom, rook to e8, removing the guard. It's also pinning the queen. It's completely winning. If he takes my rook, Queen no longer guards his rook, so we take on f2, and that's a checkmate. If he puts the bishop in the way, we take and we're completely winning. So I did my part. I checkmated his king in the center of the board, and now we're just winning. All right, so king moves out the way, and we don't want the queen because that's just a checkmate. More Sicilian Khan against 1700 players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1700. Blessing you guys with some more Sicilian Khan. Oh, we're playing against an Alapin Sicilian, which means he's going to play d4 on the next move. All right, I'm just going to go with the same Khan setup. I'm going to try to switch it up a bit. Instead of immediately taking on d4, I'm going to play a6 and see if he's going to play this move, pawn to d5. If he plays pawn to d5, then a lot of things could change. He plays knight f3. The thing about this is the whole idea of queen c7, it may be a bit harder since there's this pawn on d4. And if I takes and he plays pawn takes, then it opens the c file. So this is going to be a very interesting game. All right, bishop goes to d3. I need to finish my development. Let's go b6, and I may have to adopt hedgehog type of setup with bishop b7, pawn d6, knight d7. Rook. The thing about this is if knight f6, there's immediate e5. And that's why I'm going to play this move, pawn to d6 here. And then I'm going to go knight d7, knight f6, bishop e7, and castle. So the hedgehog Sicilian is also very interesting. I kind of had to transpose it into a hedgehog since the whole h5, knight f6, knight g4 is not going to work. And you guys are going to be playing against some Alapin Sicilian. And as you guys could see, I always say take on d4, which is still good to take on d4. But in this particular line, I prefer not to take on d4. Let's just finish our development. It's funny how I'm finishing my queenside development without finishing my kingside development. And eventually I will castle my king on the king side. Okay, knight goes back to f1. Let's keep developing. Knight f6, bishop e7, castle the king. Knight g3, we finish our development. Now I have some flexibility on where I could castle. If I castle on the queen side, then it's going to be the craziest game. But I think he's going to be able to attack my king more than how I'm going to be attacking his king. So let's just castle on the king side here. Okay, but now he goes for immediate e5, which means he's trying to attack my king. But I think I'm fine if I just take on e5. If pawn takes e5, for one, there's this knight g4, which is very strong because I'm also attacking this knight. So he has two defenders, knight g4, sack takes, check takes. Knight g4 is very strong here because now I have one, two, three attackers. He has one, two defenders, but one of the defender is already being attacked by my bishop. So technically, I am threatening and removing the guard tactic, which is to eliminate the knight and then grab this pawn on e5. So even bishop f4 should not save him here. So he did play bishop to f4. Now we have to think about it a bit, but because for one, I'm giving up my bishop for the knight, and after queen takes, knight takes, there's queen e4, and that's a lot of attack on my knight. Maybe it doesn't work. Wait, takes, knight takes, queen e4. Well, if queen e4, I have f5 first, so that's something. So takes, knight takes, queen e4, f5. Oh, the issue is he's able to play bishop takes. Bishop takes a piece, I take the queen, he takes my queen, I take a piece, which is still fine. It's very risky, guys. It's really very risky. I'm not sure. Takes, queen takes. I'm also not sure which piece to take with. Take with this knight. Nah, I think I have to take with this knight. Queen goes back, there's always bishop d6. And if queen goes here, there's always f5. Anytime he takes my piece, I take his queen. So let's go for it. It's very, very risky. Very, very risky. But if it works, I'm ahead by a pawn. If it doesn't work, I immediately lose the game. Ooh, but there's a check that I missed. Ooh, that's a nice move. I think I have to take the check, and now he's gonna check me here and then grab this. Very nice, by the way. I mean, I don't think I'm losing, but it's a tactic that he used to get back his pawn. So we have to respect it. He got back his pawn. And then he plays rook takes. And the fact that he plays rook takes means he means business. He's not trying to trade the queens off the board. He's trying to checkmate my king. But the first thing we need to do is get rid of these pieces on my half of the board. So first I'm going to go with g6, hit the queen, which is the main defender of the rook. So he has to pull the queen back. That's the only square where he's not going to just outright lose the rook. And then I could go bishop to f6 and then hit the rook. And then after the rook moves, I swing the rest of my pieces in the game. Okay, so he moves. Bishop f6 hits the rook. He's definitely not going to sack because his queen by itself is not going to mate. And the reason why I was fine with playing g6 is because I knew he would have made it hard for him to move his knight forward. Now I'll use the time to swing my rooks in the game. So let's start with rook to d8. I was about to use this rook, but then I noticed it's guarding here. So before moving this rook out the way, I have to ensure that I don't lose my a pawn. Okay, he plays h5, another very nice move. He wants to play h4. He's basically using my own pawn as a hook. That's a nice plan. All right, this is getting risky now. This is getting risky. Like this pawn getting here is going to be very, very risky. All right, I'm going to play b5 here. It seems as if I'm wasting time, but eventually I know that I'm going to need this rook. Once he push, I can't take. I don't want to take either, so I'm going to play g5 to try to keep things a bit closed, but I am pushing pawns on the side that my king is on now, so that's the risk factor. And in positions like these, I'm basically sensing that my king is about to be attacked. This is where I'm trying to just start trading everything off the board. Okay, pawn push means he wants the knight here. All right, let's just protect. Let's just protect the bishop. If knight goes here, I could move the bishop. I don't have to move the bishop. Since I want to trade, I don't think I'm going to move the bishop. I'm going to try to do some sort of counterattack in the center. And why do I want to counterattack in the center? Because he's trying to attack me on the flank, which in this case, the king side. All right, so he hits the bishop. If takes, I'm just going to take back, so I should be safe there. I'm going to go rook d5, just adding extra defense here. And if something like queen to f3 to hit my bishop, okay, that I wasn't expecting. Let's just take. I think he should have just kept the knight. It makes the position a bit more complex. Because if this attack does not work, I'm just going to win this pawn and then win the game. So my rook is not in the game. The moment I saw it, I thought he had some tactics on my rook, but if I can just swing my rook in the game, bro, I'm just going to take this pawn and win the game. So taking on f6 was really not necessary. All right, queen h5. There's probably a check here. All right, king h7 has to be the move. The thing is, I'm not able to take on h6 since the queen guards f7. So if I take on h6, there's queen f7, but that's fine. I'm not in a rush to win this pawn. I just don't want him to push it. The plan is to go queen g6 and just trade the queens off the board. If he moves, then I take. If he trades, then I take. This is winning. All right. He's getting more pieces in the game, which is fine. Wait, what if I go rook g8 to g6 and then rook takes? Actually, maybe he's trying to go for this. So rook here, rook up, maybe check king up, then hit the queen and then I take, or just take. Let's go rook here. So the moment he swings this rook, if he swings the rook, I could check. And king up doesn't work because once I take, there's no queen takes. Now I'm liking my position. Okay, rook goes back. So I guess he wants this. And that's why before I take this pawn, or I don't think I'm going to take that pawn, because if I take the pawn, eventually there's going to be rook h3. But I think queen to g6 is just an important move anyways, because rook to f3 is going to be hard. Okay, queen moves out the way. Can I play rook f5? Nah. Actually, I think it's fine if I take this pawn. I'm really not seeing a threat that this guy has. It's a free pawn. I am exposing my king a bit, but I think eventually I should be able to just play king g7, and then I can even play rook to h8, queen h6, and then I'm attacking his king. Okay, queen moves. I'm assuming he wants to infiltrate in my position with, let's say, queen c7, which I shouldn't be too afraid of, to be honest. Queen c7, I mean, it's kind of annoying allowing the queen to go in. So for now, I'm just going to play rook to d6. Let's just play rook to d6 for now, just to prevent the queen from coming in. And since this pawn is left unprotected, I may play c4, pull the king back to g7. After everything is consolidated, then I look to get some pieces off the board with rook to d1 or rook to d3. Like, black is just fine here. Okay, he centralizes the queen. Ooh, nice move. That was his plan. Yo, that was his plan. He's trying to checkmate me here, bro. What? How did I miss that? Andy's attacking this. Okay, queen f5 I like. Queen f5, check. King here. All right, the time is ticking. The time is ticking. Queen f5 is so risky, but I'm not trying to lose my pawn. Queen f5 guards the pawn, and it gives my king an escaping square after he checks me here. But what I calculated is after rook check king here, the queen is not able to move forward in my half of the board. There's also no rook checks, and I'm attacking his queen. Is it risky? Extremely risky. But since I'm under attack, I'm now just going to try to get the pieces off the board. We also both have a minute 20 on the clock, so and I think I should be better with the low time. Okay, queen moves. He's threatening this now. Maybe g4. Nah, I think I should run. Okay, let's just. Oh, fudge! I blundered. Fudge! I blundered the queen. Fudge! Fudge! Oh, he missed it. He missed. Oh my God, he missed it. Okay, this. Let's just go here. Yeah, let's go here. Now, if he checks, I go here. It's the low time now is happening. So check, I go here. If he trades, it's not that bad for him because my pawn structure is bad, but I'll still be ahead by a pawn. So the queen moves. I just want to get rid of these, especially this annoying. Yeah, let's go here. Trying to trade the rooks off the board. Rook to d1 would have also guaranteed a rook trade, but this is the rook that almost cost me my queen. Okay, he moves. Like, you have to be way faster than that, bro. Like, he starts the pre-move when he only has 10 seconds on his clock. Now it's just guaranteed that he's gonna lose. Now he wants to infiltrate, so I have to keep the rook here, so that way he doesn't infiltrate. F4, I'm just gonna take. I don't mind trading. And after the queen moves, I go here, threatening mate. There's a sacrifice here that wins a pawn, by the way, which he found in the low time. But now he only has a second on the clock, so I could even check him here and say, take my queen. Oh, shoot. He's pre-moving. Okay, good game. But more Sicilian defense against 1800 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1800. More Sicilian Khan coming your way. Okay, knight f3, we go e6. Next move is to play a6. d4. Okay, let's just take on d4 here and then play a6. This is the Sicilian Khan, by the way, guys. And by now, you guys should know the setup. Queen goes to c7, knight goes to f6, b5, knight could go to c6 in some lines. And let's just play queen c7 here. Now, which this queen applying pressure to the knight, if the bishop goes to e3, then bishop to b4 is just a very good move. But okay, I think there was a game where bishop to d3 was played and I played bishop b4 and the guy played bishop to d2, which is still good for black anyways, but let's just continue to develop normal here. b5 is an idea. Again, whenever they castle, h5, knight g4, very aggressive idea. We're good. We have seen castled, and then we're going to play pawn to h5 to start our attack. Now, the opponent decided to play f4, which could be very risky, by the way. Whenever you see them play this f4 move, just remember, the knight is now on the same line as the king, and you can start thinking about some tactical threats with moves like, let's say, bishop to c5. Because the reason why he played f4 was he knows that I wanted to play knight g4. But now, only now, with the bishop on e3, we play knight g4 because we're trying to do what is called a removing the guard tactic. The bishop is the main defender of the knight. So if the bishop moves away, we win the knight. So he decided to guard the bishop with his queen. Now, I could take queen take and then play knight c6, but at that point, he's able to play knight e2. So I need to find better ways to apply more pressure to the knight. I'm not seeing it though. Like, I really wish I was able to play queen to b6, but if I play queen to b6, there's knight a4, which is very strong. So what if okay, maybe I should play e5 because that adds pressure to the knight, but then he has knight d5. It's weird. Queen moves, takes. That's more pressure to the knight, but then he has pawn c3. God, it just doesn't work. It really just doesn't work. Wait, can't I? Do I have to use the queen though? Can't I just play knight c6? Isn't this applying more pressure to the knight? How is he going to defend the knight here? I'm attacking the knight twice, by the way, and keep in mind, the knight is technically pinned to the bishop, because if he moves his knight out the way, I take the bishop first with check. Does this mean 10 moves into the Sicilian Khan? white is about to lose a piece because I'm not seeing the move that he's gonna play. Oh, guy found a defense. Look at that. Knight f5. Defense. Because now if I take the knight, he takes my bishop. That's a nice move. And if I take the bishop, he takes with the knight and save the knight. But what if I play queen b6? No. Because the knight is still under attack and I'm attacking the bishop. If he plays knight a4, I take with check. Okay, I think this is the move. Queen b6 hits the bishop. If he takes with check, there's king f8. And if he takes, I takes with check and then I take here. Okay, what if I takes, knight takes, knight takes, queen b6? There's always knight e1. Let's try queen b6. I'm trying to win a piece in this position. Oh, yo, this guy keeps finding defense though. What a move. I'm not able to take the knight due to the spin. This guy keep finding defenses. And now if I play king e7, I'm assuming he's just going to take with check and then just take here. And then he's safe. How did I not win a piece there? All right, let's just attack the knight. It's fine. So he took with check. Then I take back. And then I'm expecting him to take. And then I take. And then he moves the king. And he didn't lose any material, which is crazy. All right, so let's just take with check. King has to move. There's also no knight f2. Knight e3 hits the rook. Doesn't really do much. I mean, there is knight d4, which hits the queen. And I don't see why it's bad. I mean, it's an attacking move. It hits the queen. I'm never afraid of h3, by the way. Whenever they play h3, you could just leave your knight hanging. Because if they take and you play pawn takes, your rook joins the attack. So now he has to find some good squares for his queen. And, maybe in some cases, I'm going to be able to play knight to f2. But queen moves over to d2. All right, how do we continue this? My king is in the center of the board, so I still need to be a bit careful. I'm going to play this move b5 with some ideas of playing b4. And if he moves the knight away, then his c-pawn is hanging. It's risky taking the c-pawn since there's rook c1, but b5 is just not a bad attacking move. Okay, he got his rook in the game. If I hit the knight, there's knight a4. So maybe I'm not going to do that just yet. How do I bring more pieces in the game here? Rook h6. Rook h6 may not work. Maybe I need my knight on b4 to hit the bishop. Okay, let me just go with the plan of playing b4, hit the knight. Like, I don't think I'm going to win the pawn on c2. Like, knight a4, I'm going to just play queen c6, hit the knight. And if he plays b3, okay, he didn't. He pulls the knight back to e2. All right, now it's just a matter of trades. I mean, it's a pawn, but there is rook to c1. At that point, I have knight f2, rook takes, and then he takes my knight, and I just don't have anything. And he's gonna have two pieces for the rook anyway, so that can't be good for us. So let's just trade. It's fine. I'm expecting rook takes. If bishop takes, c2 could be hanging. Okay, he did play rook takes, and now I play a5 to just protect both of my pawns. The bishop was also applying some pressure to a6. I think I'm better off in an endgame now because if the whole attacking idea didn't work on his king, then I need to worry about my king. Lucky thing is my king is safe, hiding behind these pawns. And his bishop, it's not like he had like a dark squared bishop. Now he plays b3. All right, do we want an endgame here? I think if I'm able to play d5, I can have a good position, but I don't want to risk this with the queens on the board. So let's just go into the endgame and just play the endgame and try to beat him in the endgame. Remember the endgame plans, by the way, guys. We attack weak pawns, we push past pawns, we activate the king. Because my king is already active in the center of the board, that's gonna help me to have a good endgame. All right, so queens are now traded. Let's go rook takes. And I have a plan to target his pawns. I think I need to play d5 and then rook takes, or d5 and then knight takes, which is why he plays d6. So there's not going to be any more d5. Maybe he wants to play f5. So let's just play the move g6 so there's no f5. And if he plays h3, the knight goes back to h6. And, eventually I could play knight to f5, but I don't think I'm going to rush knight f5. I want to play maybe rook to c8 first. So that way, if I play knight f5 and the bishop takes and I have to take back, his pawn on c2 is hanging. All right, he plays rook to g1. I think he wants to play g4, which is weird because now I'm able to go knight f5. If g4, there's always knight d4. This is hanging. And if knight f5 takes, his c pawn is hanging. And if he has to play rook c1, then that's just too passive. I think rook to g1 was an inaccurate move. I'm also threatening a fork here, by the way, so he has to be careful. Whoa. After such a well played game, he moves his rook from here because he thinks, okay, there's no more forks. But he puts his rook here. So once I play knight g3, it is still a fork. And now we just take, and we're now just winning the game. I mean, the guy played very well, to be honest. Now, there's this saying, I think it was Steenites who said it, or Emmanuel Lascaux. Whenever you're ahead in material, for example, whenever you're ahead by an exchange, you kind of want to bring the game somewhere where you sacrifice back that material so that way you're only ahead by a pawn. And I think this is the perfect scenario where I immediately sacrifice back the rook. Remember, guys, whenever you're ahead in material, look for ways in which you could sacrifice back material to simplify the position for you. Because now if he takes and I take back, my rook is already on his second rank. I'm already ahead by a pawn and I'm attacking this pawn, which means if he has to play a passive looking moves like rook to a1, then all his pieces are just going to be massively passive, and which is what he did. And I'm sure he wants to bring his king in the game. And that's why I'm going to play h4. So I want him in something that is called a zugzwang. Now, he's not even able to bring his king in the game this way because the moment he moves his king here, he's losing his pawn. The moment he moves his rook, he's losing this pawn. So what do you guys think my plan is from here? Very, very simple plan. Activate the king. So let's see, how am I going to activate my king here? There's d6 takes, but then the rook gets a check. There's f6 takes, and then I roll this pawn up the board. So I really like the idea of playing f6. Usually once you're ahead in material, you don't really want to be trading pawns. You want to be trading pieces. Pawn a3, I actually didn't look on pawn a3, but I think I'm safe if I just put the rook here. Because if he takes and I take back, I'm just going to win another pawn on the next move, which is very strong. So now we take back, and this pawn is now hanging. There's no way for him to protect the pawn with the rook. There's no way for him to tap back one of my next pawn. Like, he could take stakes and then play rook here, but then after I just, let's say, push my passed pawn, his pawn on b3 is just hanging. So he puts the rook all the way down here instead. Maybe he wants to target this pawn over here. That's a dead pawn, by the way. So how does this work? Takes? Yeah, let's just take. I think it's fine. I'm just ahead by 2 pawns here. Shouldn't be complaining. My pawn is also 3 moves away from queening. So even though his rook seems a bit active, eventually he's going to have to keep his rook behind my passed pawn. Okay, rook is now hitting this pawn. And takes, rook here hits the pawn. If he takes this pawn, I push. I could push, takes, rook here. Yeah, that's the plan. Push, takes. Yeah, let's push. If he takes, rook here though, then I go rook to g3. Fudge. Oh, that's such a nice move. That move I forgot about. Because now I'm gonna lose this pawn. It's not too bad though, because I think I'm gonna win it back. Where do I put the king? Let's put the king here to guard this. If he takes this, oh yeah, I messed up. Because now I have to take this, and then he's able to take this. Whoa. It's not too bad though. Luckily, it's not too bad because e5 is very strong, and I have many pass pawns rolling up the board. But it's you don't want to be messing up positions like this. Check. Okay, now if I go here, he takes this, which is very strong. So maybe I have to go here. And then he moves his rook. I think I have to go here. And then he's going to take this pawn instead. All right, now I need my pawns rolling up the board. I think it's time I start rolling my pawns up the board. Okay, let's move the rook. If he... Oh, come on. What am I doing, bro? I just blundered another pawn. Okay, he missed it. Now I'm able to push. What is wrong with my endgame today? He's cutting off my king though, so it's not going to be an easy game to win. But we have the same amount of time on the clock. My plan is to play e5. If he checks, I have king up. Otherwise, I need to find some very clever ways to roll my pawns up the board. I have an idea though. Get the rook here, push this pawn, and then after the trade, this pawn is going to be... He resigns. Our opponent is now 1900. Blessing you guys with some more Sicilian. Can. All right, now we're seeing knight c3, which means it's probably going to be a closed Sicilian. We're still going to be playing the regular type of Sicilian with pawn e6, pawn a6. So regardless of how they play it, this is exactly how we're going to do it. And now we're seeing this move pawn g3. Now, because we're seeing pawn g3, the whole idea of, queen c7, knight g4. All of this idea won't work. But let's just continue with the regular Sicilian Khan setup. Bishop g2, we put the queen on c7, which means a knight is now not able to move to b5 or d5. Okay, now we're seeing d3. From here, I'm just trying to develop. Let's go knight c6, knight e2. Okay, so how are we going to be attacking this Sicilian? Because I'm sure he wants to play f4 eventually. Let's just go with knight f6 here, though. It's like, remember, guys, it doesn't really matter what opening you play or you play against. It is still very important that you follow fundamental stuff. I'm not seeing how I'm going to be able to start an attack here. I'm thinking about using his hook to play h5, h4, take on h3. But even if the rook gets the file, he has the fianchettoed bishop. So I'll just keep focusing on my development with pawn b5, bishop b7, and he plays h3. Now, I'm not intending on putting a knight on g4, so I'm not sure why h3 was played, or maybe he's trying to play g4, which makes some sense, especially if he wants to play f4 followed by g4 and start some attack on the king side. But I'm just trying to finish my development here. Bishop b7, challenging this bishop on the diagonal. I'm not sure where I'm planning on castling just yet, because if I castle on the queen side, then it's going to be a bit risky since I was already moving the pawns in front of my king. He develops his bishop to e3, and now I'm just thinking about putting the bishop on either e7 or d6. I don't think d6 makes much sense since it blocks this pawn, and it's not like my bishop is doing much here. So let's just go with bishop to e7. And now my king has flexibility. If you're able to get yourself in a position where your king has flexibility on where you're planning on getting castle, then you're quite lucky, because most of the time you're forced to get your king out the center as quickly as possible, especially when you're playing with the white pieces, because you want to start an attack on black's king. Now my opponent played the move a3. I'm assuming he wants to prevent b4, but a3 doesn't usually prevent b4. And okay, I don't think I'm going to castle on the queen side anymore. Let's just castle on the king side. And I'm thinking about playing pawn to d5, especially since he has two pieces adjacent to each other like this. I'm thinking about playing d5 followed by d4. Queen to d2. Now he has connected his rooks, and I need to think about my possible pawn breaks. So let's just start with rook to d8 with some ideas of playing d5, maybe rook to c8, because I think eventually he may want to play d4. But the moment he plays d4, he's weakening the c4 square, and a knight could get access to the c4 square. Okay, now he plays bishop f4, applying some pressure to my queen, and basically, what my opponent is doing, he's provoking a weakness. Provoking a weakness basically means he puts the bishop on f4, knowing that I'm able to play e5 and gain a tempo on his bishop, but then I'm going to be weakening my d5 square. And then after the bishop move, eventually, a knight will be able to get access to d5. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to move my queen out of the way. Could have also played pawn to yeah, actually could have played pawn to d6, because now if he plays pawn to e5, it's a bit annoying. I think pawn to d6 would have prevented pawn to e5, and it would have also allowed my knight on the e5 square. But he pulls the bishop back, which means b4 could now be a possibility, because his bishop is on the same line as my queen. I mean, knight d4 is an idea. I think I'm just going to go with d5 though. d5 takes, and maybe he needs to play d4. Yeah, let's just play d5 here. We have to do a pawn break eventually, because we need to activate our rooks. But the best response, I think, for white here is to take on d5 first and then play d4. And if he plays like this, then at least he could say my pawn on d5 is a bit backward. I'm thinking about either taking with the knight or taking with the pawn. If I take with the pawn, there's pawn push. Takes, knight takes, bishop takes, and he's fine. I'm actually going to choose to take with the knight here, so that because if I had taken with the pawn, he would have been left with the attacking knight, while I would have been left with the defensive knight. And taking with the knight also allows my bishop access to the f6 square, which gives me access to a very nice diagonal. So he didn't decide to take back. He moves his bishop instead. Okay, now I could take hit the queen, and then after the queen takes, I simply hit the queen again. I could go immediate h6 to take, followed by knight takes. Really liking this idea. But I also like the idea of my knight getting access to the d4 square. So takes, queen takes, hit the queen. I think this makes the most sense to me. So just take on g5 first, and then after the queen takes, I just play h6 and, just chase the queen out of my half of the board. White has a very nice position where there is no weaknesses. Black also has a position where there's no weaknesses. I do not have any backward pawns, any weak pawns, or anything. So we're just going to keep improving our position until someone creates a weakness. For example, if I play knight d4 takes, my pawn on d4 could be a weakness, but his pawn on c2 could become a weakness on this file. I'm also thinking about taking on c3 because if I take on c3 and then he has to take back with the knight, my knight gets access to the d4 square, which is not really a weakness for him, but my knight would be in a strong square. He's not thinking about where he needs to put his queen. Okay, he moves his queen to h5, just trying to keep it on my half of the board. I mean, there's always knight f6, which hits the queen. I'm assuming he's going to play queen to h4. There's knight takes e3 that I mentioned. If he takes with the pawn, his pawns are doubled. If he takes with the knight, knight to d4 hits this pawn. And then if he trades here, I take, and then f3 is nice. I like this idea because there's actually some tactical ideas that could happen if he takes with the knight and I play knight d4. I don't think it's terrible if he takes with the pawn, but at least he's going to have some weaknesses. Okay, he did take with the pawn. So now I'm thinking about possibility of bringing this game into an endgame. And since the opponent has the weaknesses now, I think trading some pieces off the board, bringing him into an endgame would benefit black more than white. So why do I think, okay, I think I just made a drawback mistake if I'm not. Because my queen is now overworked, right? Guarding the bishop and the pawn. Oh my lord. Which means if he takes on b7 and I take back, there's queen takes c5. At that point, I'm going to go rook to c8, though. He missed it. He played rook to b1 instead. So the rook is also on the same line as my queen, so I am going to trade. And he's going to play king takes. I'm expecting some a4 or c4. I need to get my queen off the same line as his king. I like the idea of playing knight d5. Yeah, let's play no knight d5. Maybe he's gonna play c4. But if I move my queen away too far, he's gonna take this pawn. So let's play rook to c8 first and guard this pawn. If c4, then I can always check and then take. If a4, then I'm thinking of queen to a5 or maybe even play b4. Okay, so c4 was played, and I actually want to see that move because now I move the queen off the same line as the rook with check. Maybe he's gonna block with the queen. And now I want to take. The thing is, if I takes, my pawn on a6 is going to be isolated, but he's going to be left with isolated double pawns. So that has to be way more uglier than my weak pawn on a2. Now, just to let you guys understand how weaknesses works, whenever your pawns are together, it means they're strong. Whenever your pawns are disconnected, it means they're weak. So because my a pawn is disconnected from my c pawn, then it's weak. But his a pawn is disconnected from the c pawn and his c pawn. And I don't think taking was good for him because now I'm going to be able to get access to d2 hitting the knight on the pawn. So I think this is where he's slowly messing up the position. Let's take with the rook so that way there's no rook to b6 hitting the pawn. There will be rook to b7, but everything is guarded. And if he takes with the pawn, rook to d2 hits the knight, hits the pawn, and just like that, we're winning a pawn after a very well played opening and middle game from the opponent. So he saw that I was going to go rook to d2, and he was like, okay, you know what? I'm losing the pawn. All right, there's rook to d6 here, which I like because he's trying to take, but if I play rook to d6 now, he's not able to take due to losing the rook. And I'm now attacking the pawn on d3 one, two, three times, and he's only guarding it twice. So he's probably forced to play an ugly looking move like knight c1, and nobody wants to be pulling their pieces back like this. So I really like my position now. Not only am I ahead by a pawn, but I'm the one who's attacking. Okay, I was expecting knight c1. He didn't play that move, so I guess let's just take another free pawn on d3. And after he takes, I'm going to take back. And after he takes, I take, I'm hitting the knight. So I'm just ahead by 2 pawns. If he moves the knight, he could be losing a third pawn. So your endgame skills needs to be very strong as well, guys. And I'm happy how strategic this game was because it wasn't necessarily about my endgame skills. I want you guys to notice the moment this happened right here, the moment I took on c3, let's just go back. The moment I took on c3 and then he takes back and double up his pawns, that's when I made the decision of, okay, I need to get into an endgame. So if you notice that your opponent has weaknesses, that's when you want to bring them into the endgame. Okay, knight e4 was played hitting the pawn. Usually you don't want to be trading pawns in the end game, especially when you're winning. You want to be winning the pawns. So I could take this pawn. He's going to take this pawn. It's going to be a harder game for me to win. I'm not necessarily seeing how I'm going to hold on to the pawn, though. That's the issue. Let's say I push since it's a pass pawn. Rook here. I hit the knight, guard the pawn. And then, I mean, I'm going to at least try it. because I don't want to be trading the pawns. His rook getting on my second rank or my seventh rank isn't too deadly. Even if he checks king up and then he goes up, then okay, that's actually good. I thought I had king g6, but my knight would have been under attack. It's fine though. I think this pawn could help me to win this game. So now we go here, guard the pawn, hit the knight. The knight is not able to go somewhere which attacks the pawn again. And then my plan from here is to play knight d5, move the pawn to c3, and I should be winning. He pulls his knight to c3, but I'm still going to play knight d5 because I'm ahead by 2 pawns. I want to trade pieces off the board. If he takes, I take with the pawn. I have connected past pawns. Very, very easy win. So he should not trade. And if he moves the knight out the way, I'm wondering if I'm able to push. Let's say he moves the knight and I push and he takes. I go rook here, pin the knight. The knight moves, I trade, and then I'm going to be in the end game only ahead by 1 pawn, but I'm trading pieces off the board. That's my idea, but I don't think none of that is necessary right now. All right, so he pulls the knight back to hit the rook, and now I'm able to leave my pawn hanging, move the rook to d2, putting the rook on the same line as his king as well, which means there could be some knight e3 ideas. So he's not able to take my pawn due to losing his knight. And if he puts his knight on any move, on any square forward, then we're trading, which is good for me. So he chose to defend the knight. But now I have a very nice little tactical idea, which is to simply push the pawn to c3. And the reason why this works is he's not able to play knight takes due to check and pick up the knight. So I'm now just trying to roll my pass pawns up the board. Okay, knight moves out the way. Trading is only benefiting us, by the way. So let's just go with the trade. He's also weakening his pawn structure even more. And if I push, there's this king over move, and I will not be able to protect my pawn. So I'm going to check him instead, knowing that if he moves his king close to my rook, he loses this pawn. But if he moves his king back, he's bringing his king out of the defense. And what do we do here? It may seem as if it's going to be this long plan and it should not work or it's too slow, but no, you have to be patient in the end game. I'll simply bring my king in the game. Because the moment my king is able to protect the pawn, my rook is free to roam. That move didn't really do much. Let's just continue to activate the king because king activity is crucial in the endgame. And now that he plays this move, playing the move rook to d2 is mathematically winning. I'm sure I spoke to you guys about this. If you're ahead in material, it's good to give back some material so that way you're in a position that is now guaranteed to win. So now I'm just going to hit him with this move. Okay, let's go king c4. The idea is to play king to b3. And if he puts the king here, then I'm now just going to ensure that he's not able to move his pawns. And if he's forced to move away his king, then I'll be able to freeze his pawns, or he's going to be in this thing called a zugzwang. And he also has 20 seconds on the clock, so he's just lost. So the king move, let's just freeze the pawns first. And now if he puts the king here and I go here, he's not able to go here. So that's my idea. So now that there's no pawns that is able to move, he's in zugzwang. He moves the king over here. I move my king here. And then we simply grab the pawn. To make it more competitive, he should have at least put the king here so that way I'm not able to move my king. But now it's just a matter of rolling the pawn up the board and winning a very simple endgame. So can I take this pawn? Will that be a stalemate? No. Hey, no, I'm just taking all his pawns at this point. And hopefully you guys were able to spot some endgame technique here. He's also want me to prove that I'm able to checkmate with the king and the queen, but he has no time on the clock. More Sicilian Khan against 2,000 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 2,000. We're trying to end things with a bang of a Sicilian Khan. Knight f3, we go e6. And if they play d4, we take on d4, then we play a6. This is the Sicilian Khan. Now, with the knight on c3, we're going to play the move queen to c7 here. The idea is whenever they play moves like bishop to d3, we're able to actually apply a lot of pressure to their position on c3. So before we even do much here, we can actually go bishop to b4. And this is actually very, very annoying attack because then it forces them to start playing moves like bishop to d2. And that's not usually where they want to put their bishop. All right, so from here, let's just continue with development. Let's go knight f6. Anytime they play a3, we're not planning on giving up the bishop for the knight, by the way. Usually the bishop is better placed on d6 or e7, and usually depending on where they castle the king. All right, so king is now castled. And already there's some ideas of playing h5 and knight g4. This is like one of the most aggressive way in which you could play. Whenever you play the Sicilian Khan, it's kind of like the whole idea or the whole plans in the Sicilian. So we're actually going to be going for it. Let's go h5. Plan is to go knight g4, threatening mate. And I'm expecting my 2000 opponent to see that I'm going to be threatening a mate. But the whole idea is to try to get him to push pawns on the side that his king is on. What we're doing is provoking weaknesses. So a3 was played. There's bishop d6. Or I could play knight g4 first. If I play knight g4 first, I'm gonna be forcing him to maybe pull this knight back or play g3. I would like to see g3, by the way, because if he plays g3, that's really weakening his king, and eventually I'm gonna be able to use g3 as a hook and then play h4 and continue my attack. But after, let's say, he plays g3, I need to move my bishop. Okay, so g3 was played. That's what we'd like to see. And let's just pull the bishop back, not trying to give up my bishop for a knight. And since he plays g3 as well, guys, my light squared bishop could also be activated on this diagonal with moves like pawn b5, bishop b7. And there's also some f5 ideas as well. Like things could get very crazy here. Okay, bishop goes back. That's an interesting move. He's just trying to get rid of my knight on g4. All right, I'm wondering if I'm able to sacrifice it though. Like, allow the queen. Nah, I don't think I want to do that because I'm not that strong on this file as yet. There's some knight takes h2, pawn h5 ideas, but because of my lack of development, that may also not work. So for now, let's just pull the knight back to f6 and just focus on our development. Also, pulling my knight back to f6 allows me to play this h4 move. And guys, I want you guys to notice how I'm currently at move 11. My knight and my bishop is not yet developed. So it's something about what I'm doing is on principle. Now the bishop is on g5. He's preventing me from playing pawn h4, so that's not a bad move. Queen e5 hits the bishop. I don't think I want to do that though. Let me just try to get more pieces in the game. Let's play b5, bishop to b7, and then get my knight to c6. I could have also played knight c6 first. And by the way, I want you guys to notice how there's two pieces attacking h5. There's two pieces protecting h5. His bishop is also targeting my knight on f6. But for one, I don't think he's able to win material because the queen is overworked. The queen will be overworked guarding both the knight on d4 and the pawn on h5. But two, even if he was able to win the pawn, I don't really care because I kind of want the h file to be open. And okay, that was a very weird move by my opponent. We don't push pawns on the side that our king is on like that. Because now the knight and the king is clearly on the same line. Pieces on the same line, guys. Remember, that's the third most important tactical weakness to know. What if I just start applying pressure to the knight? Will he not lose this knight? Okay, let's just say I play. Okay, maybe not though, because I would have to apply pressure to the knight too many times. For example, the moment I play queen b6, he moves the king. Or if I play queen b6, he push, and then after bishop to c5, he goes back. But it cannot be bad though. That's the thing. Let's go queen b6. It just can't be a bad plan because if he moves his king to h1 and I go bishop b7, his king will now be on the same line as my bishop. So let's see. Something is weird about that f4 move that he just played. And also, I want you guys to notice that the purpose of castling your king is so that way your king is hiding behind your pawns. My king is already hiding behind my pawns. And the only way for him to get to my king is to open the center with some pawn trades. And that I'm not seeing how it's possible right now. So he did the correct thing, which is to move the king, but the plan was to go bishop to b7. The moment he moved his king, I put my bishop on the same line as his king. Now he plays bishop f3. Very good defensive resource. And I like the idea of playing d6 followed by knight d7 here, so that way I could go knight c5, target this pawn. Knight c6 is also an idea, but I don't see why I want to trade in this position. Pawn to d6, pawn to e5. I takes. Yeah, I think pawn to d6 is fine. Knight d7 is the idea. Okay, immediate e5 was played. And how does this work? Do we take on e5 and then go knight d7 and then target this pawn? Will my king be too weak? Do I go knight d5 here? Do I go knight g4 and attack here? I think knight g4 is the move here, guys. Yo, I almost missed knight g4. Knight g4 is such a strong move. I think I should take first, though. And then after he takes, I go knight g4. Nah. I can't take because if I take stakes, knight g4, the bishop covers the e3 square. Even though after knight g4, I will be hitting the bishop. It's weird. Take stakes, knight g4. I'm attacking the bishop. I'm threatening to take a free bishop. All right, I'm not sure, guys. Let's just go with knight g4 since it's a real threat. Knight g4 is a real threat. of a royal fork. The bishop on f3 is pinned, so he's not able to take. And one could say I'm now threatening to eliminate the bishop, and then once the pawn takes, I take on e5, and I'm winning a pawn. Okay, and our 2000 rated opponent just got royal fork. Poor guy. He completely missed this, by the way. Maybe he thought I was gonna take back and he thinks he has something, but wow, good game, bro. Good game. He said he thought it was a fork, but not to his king. He forgot how the knight moves. Okay, king moves out the way. He's also allowing me to take his queen with check. Now his knight is just clearly pinned. I mean, I don't see why I shouldn't just take back the bishop though. I think I'm gonna take here first. Because then if he moves the bishop, I take. Maybe he takes here and I take. He still has two pieces under attack. So let's just take on e5 first. This is just completely winning, by the way. Like, there's just too many of his pieces under attack. And I have a queen that the guy does not have. Let's just take back. Again, I'm hitting both the bishop and the knight. So something is hanging even after this. And I'm already ahead by 4 points. Okay, he saves the bishop. Let's grab the knight. And then after rook takes, I'll develop my knight, hit the bishop. I'm actually trying to castle my king, but I think he's just going to play bishop to d6 in this position. And then pawn to h4 finally comes in. You see the importance of h4. It still comes in. And he doesn't want me to open up the line, so he pushed past, but I'm now going to push since my queen is now getting some access to g4. He saw the idea of that, put the knight in the way. But because I want to get rid of that knight, let's go knight f6, hit the knight. If he takes with check, I take back first, then threaten g2. Otherwise, I'm just going to take the knight. If he plays knight c5 to hit the queen, queen g2 is just very strong. I'm also threatening knight takes g4, which is just a free pawn. All right, so he moves the rook to protect the knight. I mean, that is a free pawn, but I'm ahead in material. You know, I want to trade. And now he took with the rook. I can't really play f5 though because this is hanging. I was about to castle. Oh, actually, I can castle because there's no rook c4. I was about to say I was about to castle, but he has rook c4, but there's no rook c4. So castling still hits the bishop, and I want my rook on d2, so I'm expecting him to put his bishop on b4 to protect this square. And okay, he didn't. So check is good, but what if I push hit the rook now? And then I try to get access to g2. Like anything that I do, I'm winning, by the way. Like I'm ahead by 5 whole points. My rook is going on his second rank. My queen is going on his second rank. Checkmate is incoming. All right, now he's begging some trades. Let's get the queen on the second rank first with check, forcing his king to move. And now we start to trade some pieces off the board. H2 is hanging, C2 is hanging, everything is hanging. All right, if I check, he's just going to block with the bishop. So let me just grab this pawn. The idea is to move the queen out of the way and just promote to another queen. Okay, bishop moves, we check. And by the way, guys, just to show you what conversion is, once he moves his king, if you're massively ahead in material, feel free to sacrifice back, give back material, so that way the position is just easier for you to play. So after he moves his king, I'm just going to sack my queen for the rook, roll my pawn up the board, get another queen, and then he should be able to get checkmate. Okay, king moves out the way. Let's sack. Now we queen. Okay. Let's just move the rook out the way. I mean, I could have queen with check and then check and pick up the bishop, actually. Now I go here. Look at this. I don't queen. I go here. And then I'm going to queen. And then on the next move, it's going to be a checkmate. Random move, but that's just a checkmate.